Hi, this is Dr. Mike, host of the free iTunes podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. But that's not why I'm here today. Actually, I'm here right now with a very, very long video. What happened was I wanted to do this very simple video for people that were just getting into either extended trips or living in a van or a car or something. And I thought, I'm going to come up with this video that talks about the basic cookware, the things that you need that will take the least amount of space but give you the greatest utility. But then I started to research the topic, and there were so many other questions to be answered. Is it safe to use aluminum? What about Teflon? What are other people using? So I started watching dozens of these cooking videos, these van or car cooking videos, and I tried to gather information from those videos so it wouldn't just be my opinion, but it would also be a more global opinion. So because this video is so long, I'm going to list times on the bottom, time codes on the bottom, so you can go just to the part of the video that you are interested in. Feel free to watch the whole thing. You'll get 3 stars for that, but otherwise just watch what you want. I hope you find this useful. All right, let's go to some videos, and we're going to look at a variety of things. We're going to look at the various materials, like what pans are made out of, and the positives and negatives about those pans, and we're going to talk about aluminum in a real frank and scientific way. We're going to talk about Teflon in a real frank and scientific way, and we're going to talk about ceramic coatings in a real and scientific way. So if you're a person that likes to look at those videos where people are saying just what they think, you probably don't want to watch it, because these are the real facts. We're also going to look at what I use, which is actually different than what I'm going to recommend. And of course, I'm going to recommend a various setup for individuals, looking at the pros and cons for both an individual and for a couple traveling. Okay, we're going to talk about the various materials that are used in pots and pans and their various advantages and disadvantages in van dwelling / cooking. So this, of course, is cast iron. This is a pan by Lodge. Oops, I can't get on the screen there. This is a pan by Lodge. It's definitely very inexpensive. You can buy it anywhere. Cast iron offers many advantages and some disadvantages. Advantages include the fact that it's cheap. It's almost indestructible. You can use it on any type of surface, anything from an induction stovetop all the way down to a campfire, and you're not going to damage it. And it's really cooks well. It's an excellent conductor of heat. It also has the advantage of, if you season it, you get a nice kind of slick coating on the inside, and if you protect that seasoning, what you're going to find is that it's sort of non-stick. So what are the disadvantages of using cast iron? Well, one of the disadvantages is that it gets so hot, and everything, including the handle, will be red hot for a long time after you cook with it. Another disadvantage is that it is metal, and so if you cook acidic foods in it, that food may have kind of a metallic taste. Now, I can't personally taste that, but some people might be able to taste that, and they might find that unpleasant. I find that I use this sort of stuff all the time at home, but it's not my first choice when it comes to van cooking, for the very simple reason that it takes a little bit to clean it. Now, at home, cleaning it is super simple, but let me kind of go through that routine. So after you cook something in a Lodge pan, you need to not use soap, because that's going to destroy the seasoning, and you really shouldn't use any vinegar or anything like that. That's also going to destroy the seasoning. So you use a lot of hot water and a stiff brush, and you just kind of wash it out. But because this is metal, the next thing you have to do is put it back on the stove and heat it up to evaporate all that water off. Once it's good and hot and the water is off, then you add a little bit of oil, maybe a teaspoon or so, smear it around with a paper towel, and heat it to the point that it smokes. Once it smokes, you then have to wipe it out again to make sure you don't have any excess oil, cool it down, and put it away. Now, that's not much of a problem in a kitchen, and we do it all the time. But for me, that's just too much of a hassle in a camper van. However, some people find this type of cookware ideal. Let's put that away and get our next thing. Alright, what is this? This is good old aluminum. Now, there's a lot of controversy around aluminum, and I have done a tremendous amount of research on this topic to see what's true and what's not true. So, of course, the big controversy is that aluminum as an element may be damaging to your body, and there are situations where people think that aluminum is involved in certain neurological diseases like Alzheimer's disease. But the question is just because there's an association, does that mean that aluminum pots and pans are bad? And if they are bad, why are there so many pots and pans out there in the environment? And why does the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, allow these pans to be used? Well, because the hype is very different than the reality. And you'll find dozens of YouTube videos and websites and blogs talking about how bad aluminum is. And honestly, I hate to say, but they're not making a lot of sense. They're relying on other bad information. So there's a great study from Cooks Illustrated, the famous Cooks magazine, and they took a saucepan, an aluminum saucepan, and in that saucepan they added tomato sauce, which is very acidic, which is the worst thing for aluminum. And they cooked that tomato sauce for 2 hours, and then they left the tomato sauce on the counter overnight. So if anyone else did this, you throw out the tomato sauce, but this was an experiment. Then they sent the tomato sauce off to a lab and analyzed it for how much aluminum was in the sauce. And they did find aluminum in the sauce. In 1 cup, which is a generous portion, they found 0.0024 milligrams of aluminum in 1 cup. Now, to give you a perspective that's a little more reasonable, in 1 single common antacid tablet, there can be 200 milligrams of aluminum. So if we approximate the 0.0024 rounded off to 0.002, compare that to 200 milligrams, that's a 100,000 fold. So in other words, if you wanted to have the same amount of aluminum that you would have in 1 single antacid tablet, using a pot where you left the food overnight on the counter and still ate it, you would have to eat a cup a day for well over 200 years. So I don't worry too much about aluminum. You might want to worry about aluminum. If you do, don't use it, but don't go to restaurants because they're using it too. Now aluminum can, just like the cast iron, impart a metallic flavor in foods that are very acidic, like tomato sauce. Again, I can't taste it, but you may. And so what manufacturers have done is they've created what's called anodized aluminum. And what that is they'll take this plain pan here and they'll use an electrochemical process to build up aluminum oxide, in other words, aluminum rust on the outside surface of the pan. And that is much harder than regular aluminum, so it's going to resist the acid in things like tomato sauce, and hopefully you won't get that metallic taste. What's the disadvantages of aluminum oxide on your pan? Well, it might cost you a little bit more because it's an additional process. So that's about the only disadvantage. This is just bare aluminum. I don't have an anodized pan to show you, unfortunately. All right, let's move on to the next thing that you commonly find. That is stainless steel. So stainless steel is called the king of cookware because stainless steel, food-grade stainless steel, is unreactive to all foods. Now, food-grade stainless steel is different from other stainless steels because it doesn't have certain heavy metals and other bad things in it that you could easily use or have in other stainless steel. So this is very safe to use. What are the advantages of stainless steel? Well, it does not react with any food. What are the disadvantages of stainless steel? It's really a terrible conductor for heat, for cooking. And so what happens is that you have to layer some sort of other material with the stainless steel to make it more usable. So this particular pan is called a tri-clad pan, and it's made by a company, can I get that in the camera? So I'm kind of doing all this backwards, called All Clad. Other companies make this too, and what you basically have is you have, you can't really see it, but you have a layer of stainless steel and then a layer of aluminum sandwiched in between and another layer of stainless steel. So this uses aluminum, which is a much better conductor, but on both sides you have stainless steel. Now another option that you could have would be to actually fuse a disc of stainless or of aluminum on the bottom of the pan. That works just fine for this type of cooking too, for Vandwelling cooking. You're not going to see a difference. It's a little bit cheaper to do that, and so less expensive pans will have that. Makes no difference in what we're going to be using it for. But definitely with most stainless steel, especially with frying pans, you're going to want it to have some other metal bonded to it in one way or another, and usually that metal is going to be aluminum. Also important in saucepans, but not quite as important because you don't have the food directly stuck to the bottom of the pan. All right, now that we've talked about materials, let's talk about different types of interiors or coatings. Coatings. Well, this is just regular old cast iron, but it has been seasoned, and if you can see, it has a pretty shiny appearance. So if you treat cast iron well, it's going to have a somewhat non-stick surface. But with any pan, including the real non-stick stuff, I think a little oil really helps. It adds to the flavor. A tiny bit of butter is not going to, unless you have some major health condition, is not going to hurt you. And it just really adds to the non-stick qualities. But stuff like cast iron will develop a natural non-stick coating if you don't wash with soap or other things that are going to remove that coating. A lot of people like a completely bare pan. This is stainless steel again. I'm actually going to show a video where I look at how you can get stainless steel to stick less, because a lot of people complain that these non-stick coatings stick a lot. Well, and then you can see these ridiculous videos. Excuse me, I don't mean to offend anyone, but you'll see these videos where people are heating up oil and then cooling it down, like they're kind of like seasoning it, like you'd season a cast iron pan, but you have to season it every time, and it's just not necessary. The secret with cooking with stainless steel or other metals and not having it stick, with the exception of cast iron, is always to use medium to low heat and a little bit of grease in the pan. And I'm going to show you a video right now that demonstrates that. Okay, this is just a plain stainless steel pan. It hasn't been treated in any way. I haven't done any kind of fancy seasoning or anything. But the secret to making it stick less is to never use high heat, with the exception of maybe cast iron. With any other kind of bare metal, it just does not work well, whether it's aluminum or stainless steel. So I'm at about mid heat here. I'm going to actually drop it down another notch on this induction stove, and I tend to use a little cooking spray. I don't know if this really helps or not, but I think it might, so I do that. But what's really important is to add a little bit of fat. In this case, I'm adding a little bit of butter, and the butter is critical. So the medium temperature, no higher, and then using some sort of a fat. In my case, I like butter, so that's what I'm using. That's what we're going to do here. Okay, our butter is well melted. We've kind of smushed it around the pan a little bit. I'm just going to add the eggs, and we're going to let them cook. Okay, so we're going to check this out. You can see this is the way I kind of like my eggs. They're not all slimy on the top, but here again, this is completely, I mean, I can move all that around. So I'm trying to do this kind of backwards because the camera's right where I would normally be cooking, but you can just see, I mean, it's not sticking at all. So get this in there, get in there. Oh no, hopefully I didn't break it. But this is my fault, not the pan's fault, right? Get that in there too. And you can see by looking at the pan, I mean, it's perfectly okay. I mean, there's nothing here. A little bit of egg there, that's for my error. And so that's the secret to this, really. Use a little bit of fat. I use cooking spray. I don't know if that's necessary in addition to the fat. And then I always cook at a medium heat, and that would be if you're using aluminum or stainless steel. You can get away with using a higher temperature when you're using cast iron because that's seasoned and it has sort of a non-stick coating on it. But of course, if you are using a non-stick, like a ceramic coating or a Teflon coating, that's medium heat or lower too for just about everything else. And you're always going to have more success with any of those surfaces if you use a little bit of fat. It adds to the flavor. It's good for you, really, unless you're going crazy. All right, the controversy begins. So this is a non-stick interior, like Teflon or Silverstone or whatever they have out there. It's all basically the same thing. So Teflon was actually developed in the 1940s and was commonly implemented in frying pans. I certainly remember frying pans and cookware using it in the 1970s, and it's gotten a lot of bad rap. So why is it still available? Because it honestly, on all accounts, is safe. So don't look at all those threatening YouTube videos or read those blog posts or those health experts that really haven't done the research. So what is the true research on Teflon? It's not a naturally occurring substance. that was created in the lab that's almost frictionless, which makes it non-stick. It is very non-reactive. So if you swallow a little piece of Teflon, it's going to go in your mouth and come out virtually unchanged on the other end. Now obviously if you have a pan that's flaking all over the place, it's either a cheap pan or it's old, throw it out. That's just gross, whether it's a health hazard or not. You may hear these stories about birds that died when someone overheated a Teflon pan. Birds have extremely sensitive respiratory systems, and they will die even if you flash a pan and you have too much smoke in the room and things like that. You may have heard of stories of using C8 in these pans, which is a known carcinogen. Well, in the manufacturing process of these pans, C8 is completely burned off and is not an issue. But for many years that has not even been used in these pans. Don't even worry about it. Now people will talk about Teflon flu. What is that? Teflon flu is something that happens when you break down Teflon. You actually destroy the Teflon, it off-gases, and some people will have a temporary flu-like symptom for 10 or maybe 12 to 24 hours. We don't think this is dangerous, it's just disgusting, right? But let's look at this in a more rational way. Cooking oils will smoke anywhere between 390 and 450 degrees. So if you're using olive oil, that's going to smoke around 390. I think if you're using something like peanut oil or safflower oil, one of these really high smoke point oils, that's going to be around 450. So if I have this pan with some oil in it on the stove and it gets to around 400 degrees and starts to smoke, what am I going to do? I'm going to turn that temperature down. Now people will tell you that Teflon degrades at 500 degrees. That's true. But what does degradation mean? It means that its structure is altered to the point where it may become less non-stick, or it may change colors. It may get darkened. But that's not dangerous. When it really off-gases, it has to reach its degradation point, which is around 670 degrees. So at 670 degrees, yes, some people might get a little sick if they're in an enclosed space because they're basically destroying their pan. But think about that. This flash, if you're using oil, it's going to flash or smoke around 400 degrees, 670 degrees. Even ovens go up at most to 450 degrees. The only way that you could get a pan like this that hot is if you put it directly on a big fire and you left it there completely empty for a long period of time. And if you're doing that, you should not be cooking in your van. If you're leaving pans, empty pans on open fires and walking away from them in your van, please eat beef jerky. So that's the story with that. Well, let's move on to the next, the latest, greatest thing. Ceramic coating or something like it. Now, one thing to say about ceramic coating is that it is dyed. So if you see one that's green or blue or copper color or black like this one, it's just the dye that they put in there. There's nothing like super special about that pan. Although some pans might add, the formulations may be a little bit different. There's a lot less detailed data about health risks with ceramic cooking. So I'm going to tell you what I know, but it's not nearly as comprehensive as the information that I know about aluminum cookware or Teflon. So ceramic cooking or ceramic surfaces are fairly new, and people think that ceramic is safe, which it is, and therefore ceramic coatings may be safe. But these are really two different things. So a ceramic cookware is basically clay that's been heated to a very high temperature, almost to become glass-like, and we know that that's pretty safe to use. This is actually something that's sprayed on the pan in what's called a sol gel, and that may have other agents in it that help with this process. So it's sprayed on the pan and baked on the pan, probably sprayed a couple of times, and it makes this slick surface. Now, a couple of things that you may hear about ceramic cooking. People caution using it because it may contain trace elements like cadmium, which is really bad for you, or lead or arsenic. But if you're buying a brand name pan or a well-known brand that's in the US at least, none of those pans have that because they are you can't do it by law. I wouldn't buy off of eBay something, but this is something from like a regular store or a regular retailer. Ceramic coatings are fragile, and despite the fact that people might use knives and things on them on the TV commercials, you will scratch and damage these pans if you do it. So just like with Teflon, you should use soft things like nylon or plastic spatulas. Ceramic also can degrade with high heat, but what happens to it, I don't know. And because it is more glass-like, I worry a little bit more about it fragmenting if you get little chips of it, what that would do to your gut. But here again, I don't have enough data to support that fear of mine. It's generally thought to be pretty safe. People use it. It's fairly inexpensive. If you buy it in a pan at Walmart, you can get a nice sized frying pan for 20 bucks. And it's generally good. Never use cooking spray in a ceramic pan. You will destroy the slick coating. Definitely use a little oil in them to preserve their life and make them last longer. Will it last as long as Teflon? You know, they roughly have the same lifespan, so expect to change out a pan after a couple of years when it's lost its effectiveness, and that's if you treat it well. The other thing that I would say about ceramics, what else do I say about it? I forgot, so I can't really say it anymore. But those are some things. So yeah, it's about as durable as Teflon. It's about you have to be about as careful as it with Teflon. It's just a different chemical composition, which you may find more or less desirable. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Is ceramic as slick as Teflon? It really depends on brand to brand. Some are not very good non-stick, some are better, but generally it's thought that Teflon is actually more non-stick. But this stuff is pretty good too. Okay, let's move on to pot size and pan size recommendations. So what are you going to need for van life? And what I'm talking about here is what are the practical sizes of pots and pans that are going to be the most efficient for you to cook with. So you're not burning stuff, or you're not taking up all your storage space. Well, it kind of varies, but you really need very little to do quite a bit. So we're assuming that you're living in the van with one or at most two people. And that's where I'm going to put my recommendations. So if you have one person, I think the minimum kind of setup that you're going to want is a pan that's at least 7 or 8 inches big, which is the size of this pan, the size of my hand there. This will give you an idea, this will give you plenty of space to do basic cooking. However, I think with one person, you still would be happier with a 10-inch pan if you have the room for it. It's just is a lot more versatile. You can use it for a lot more things. Just as a comparison, here's the smaller pan, here's the larger pan. Now, can you get away with just one device? Yes, of course you can. But I think you're going to be better off with at least a couple other items. A saucepan is probably the thing that I use the most when I'm cooking in the van. This is a 1-quart saucepan, which would be fine for a single person, but I really prefer a 1.5-quart saucepan for my use. I think it's a little bit bigger, so you can make small batches of pasta in it, yet it's small enough to boil enough water for a cup of coffee. But a 1 cup would do. Again, I probably would recommend 1.5 cups. If you want to go the full Monty, then I would recommend using or also having a larger saucepan. Now this particular one is 4 quarts, so something in that 3-quart, 4-quart range would be just fine. That's going to let you make big batches of stuff, or boil up some corn, or to make some popcorn, or do things just to make yourself feel more at home. Is this absolutely necessary? Probably not, but if you could fit it in the van, go for it. Now this is a 4-quart that we have at home. It has a long handle on it, which is going to take up more space, but you definitely can get 3- and 4-quart pans that have handles on both sides like this, and they're just going to be a lot easier to stack within the limited confines of your camper van. So again, my recommendations for one person: have a 7 or 8 inch frying pan, or better yet, a 10-inch frying pan, plus a 1 or better yet a 1.5-quart little pot, and then maybe a 3 or 4-quart pot. What's my recommendation for 2 people? Well, I would definitely go up with the 10-inch frying pan for 2 people, and I definitely would use either a 1.5-quart or even 2-quart little saucepan. I would recommend actually a 1.5-quart here too. I just think it's such an ideal size. And again, that 4-quart or 3-quart pot can be a handy extra. So a pretty simple setup. Now definitely you can find people that are using just a big like frying pan with high sides to do everything, and you'll see other people that are using just a single pot to do everything. All of that is possible, but I think if you have a couple different sizes of pans, these pans over the millennia have been designed to do particular jobs. They do them well. Frying pans are better at frying than pots. Pots are better at heating up spaghetti or whatever than frying pans. Okay, you may wonder what I use in my camper, and this is a movable feast. I might change this tomorrow, but this is what I'm using now, and it's a little bit different from what I'm actually recommending. And the reason I'm showing you this is to show you that there is flexibility here. The stuff that I'm saying is not written in stone. It's just to give you an idea. So for a frying pan, I'm using this GSI kind of very nice collapsible frying pan. It's aluminum, it's reasonably heavyweight, and it has a non-stick sort of coating on it, which I find ideal. Now I actually bought this frying pan before I had my camper van in anticipation of the camper van, and the reason I bought it is because it has this nice handle that, I'm not going to be able to do it, but what folds but also detaches. So I thought this would be great for stacking in tight spaces. Knowing what I know now with the space that I had, I easily could have just used a regular frying pan with a regular handle, but I didn't know it at the time, and I'm pretty happy with this frying pan. As far as pots go, again, a little bit non-traditional. So I went into my tent camping setup, and I took this pot here. This is a Stanley pot system. It's 1.5 quarts, which for me is absolutely ideal. And here again, I like the fact that it has a foldable lid or a foldable handle, so I can stack it inside another pot. It has a lot of little extra features too. For instance, it has these drain holes here, so if you're making some pasta or something, you can easily drain it. Now this is a nice heavy grade stainless steel, but what I will say is that you'll notice there's no aluminum or other metal bonded to the bottom. So potentially it's a little more susceptible to hot spots and burning than using a pan that has an aluminum bottom like this one here. But this pan has so many other features that I'm willing to work around its limitations. So again, it's the handle folds. It has this nice drain system here with a lid that fits. Inside it comes with these, and you can see the inside if you want to see it. It comes with these 2 bowls. These bowls are, I don't know if they're insulated, but they're very thick plastic. They have little, if you want to sip out of the sides, they have little lip areas here. It comes with 2 covers. They could also be used as cutting boards, although very tiny ones. So these come here. So again, you can see you can just pour that like you're just drinking it a little bit. It also comes with these little, and I don't really use these gadgets, but I used to use regular ones, but it does come with a spatula and a little ladle that also has a drain lip on it here. And these expand, they kind of clip together, and you can make a nice spatula or a ladle or a little drain thing if you choose to do that. So that's all included, and I think that adds to the value, especially in a camping situation. Now the one thing that I did do with this pan, which also adds to its value, is I made this. What is this? This is a cozy. I made this really in about 15 or 20 minutes. These are pieces of Reflectix, and it's held together very craftily with duct tape. So I will say that this is not the prettiest thing on the block. I know there are people that can make much better devices, but this works great for me. And its advantages as follow. I made this actually for camping, not for vandwelling, but I use it in vandwelling. So let's say you're making something like one of those Knorr side dish things, those noodle dishes. Normally you're going to put that on your burner and you're going to cook it for 7 or 8 minutes until it thickens. And that wastes a certain amount of fuel. But with this system, what you can do is you put your stuff in there, you boil it for maybe a minute, and then you kind of collapse it. You put it in the cozy. You put the lid on the cozy, and this insulates everything, and it continues to cook for whatever. Maybe you'll cook it for another 10 or 15 minutes, and it's going to be hot and fully cooked. You're going to save fuel. It's just a really nice thing to do. And again, this Reflectix costs nothing. In fact, I actually got it from my brother-in-law who was using it for something else. And in fact, I even used his duct tape because I was at his house. So that's just a great idea. Now, the other odd piece of equipment that I use is this. This is a Presto 4-quart pressure cooker. There's a story behind this pressure cooker. I've had this pressure cooker for decades, but I haven't used it for 10 years. 10 years ago, I shifted over to induction cooking, and this pressure cooker is not compatible with an induction range. But I loved it so much that I could not throw it out because someday I knew I would have a use for it. And it's perfect for using on a little butane stove that I use, a little like bistro type stove. A pressure cooker is basically an Instant Pot. So if you have an Instant Pot or if you want an Instant Pot, this is what this is, except it's going to work on a gas range instead of you don't have to plug it in. So why would I want a pressure cooker? Well, if I'm making anything in quantity, it's going to make it much quicker, save a lot of fuel, be a lot more just efficient. But it does so much more. So let me take all this junk out of here and show you what it does. So if I use it like this, with the lid on, and this little gadget on top of this little rocker, it's a pressure cooker. If I take this off, it's a regular pot, which just like any other big 4-quart pot that I can cook whatever I want in it. I could also put this little rack in here and put a baking dish on it. This rack came with it. Put a little baking dish on it and it becomes an oven. I can put this on top of the rack and it's now a steamer. So it's really multifunctional. It's like whatever, 6-in-1, 10-in-1, whatever you want to say, one of those kind of pots. And again, these are not very expensive, and you get all the benefits of an Instant Pot with maybe it's not a slow cooker, but it does everything else, and you can do it on your cap range, and you can use it for a bunch of other stuff too. So that's what I have currently in my system. Again, not exactly what I recommended, but pretty close. And just to show you, it all fits together in a nice little package. So we have our frying pan below here. I did take off the handle, which easily goes back on. We have the pressure cooker. Inside the pressure cooker is my little kind of Stanley camp pot, and below there is the steamer. There's the little rack accessory. So all of it in a very compact form factor, and I can make just about any meal you could imagine with this very simple but efficient setup.
Holy cow, if you made it all the way through this video, or even part of this incredibly long video, thank you so much. If you like these videos and all sorts of other videos that I make, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up. I did put a lot of work in this. I know it's probably kind of boring, but you know, it has information that I think could be useful for a lot of people, so it's out there. So I thought I'd give you some fun other facts at the very end of this video, just for sticking around. And this is from watching dozens upon dozens of cooking in the van type videos or cooking in the car type videos. First of all, the most common pan used is the frying pan. And the most common size used is 10 inches. The most common material that I saw in all these many videos was just good old aluminum, followed way down the list by cast iron, and then way down below that would be stainless steel. The most common thing interior would be some sort of a non-stick interior, and it was very hard to kind of say, was it ceramic or was it just good old Teflon non-stick? I saw a lot of both. A lot of the newer videos you see a lot more ceramic. I think that's because these pans are so available at places like Walmart for pretty cheap prices. So I can't really say which is which. And again, don't forget, I guess if you only could have one pan, probably pick a frying pan, because that's what people that seem to have just one pan, that's what they're using. And if you get one with a high side on it, I mean, you really could cook everything in it from soup to nuts. Take care, everyone. Again, if you like this, please subscribe to my channel, or please give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate you watching, and have a great day.